All right, we're live from the Pelicans facility here, and with the 7th overall pick, the Pelicans select Jeremiah Fears, guard out of Oklahoma. I'll tell you why this is exactly the type of player the Pelicans needed in this NBA draft. We'll look at how he fits next to Zion Williamson and what's next as we're live here, instant reaction to the draft pick. It's a live episode of Locked On Pelicans. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pelicans, your daily New Orleans Pelicans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another edition of Locked On Pelicans, the daily podcast covering your favorite team, the New Orleans Pelicans and NBA, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, available wherever you get your podcasts and available on YouTube, as well as Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment. I'm your host, Pelicans Insider, credential member of the media, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter, here with y'all live immediately after the Pelicans make the 7th overall pick, taking Jeremiah Fears from Oklahoma. We're going to look at why he makes perfect sense for New Orleans, why this is the pick that they needed to do. We'll look at his fit next to Zion Williamson and what's next for the Pelicans in the draft. They have the 23rd overall selection as well. So I appreciate you making time for Locked On Pelicans today, staying with me live here during the show. The way this works is I'm going to do the whole regular show, 3 segments with the ads and everything, and then we'll do bonus chats, hangout at the end. So stick with me through the end. I will get to your questions. Please don't spam the chat. We'll get to your questions at the end here. And again, we are live literally in the Pelicans podcast studio here. So the 7th overall selection, Jeremiah Fears from Oklahoma. I like this pick. The Pelicans have needed to upgrade the guard position for a while. They just added Jordan Poole literally yesterday to this team, and now they get Jeremiah Fears, basically solidifying their backcourt of the future going forward with this team. I think Fears is a guy that could start or even come off the bench. We'll look at that in a little bit here. But what's so impressive about Jeremiah Fears really is what he did as a freshman. The SEC was the toughest basketball conference we have ever seen. They sent more teams to the tournament than any other team here. And Jeremiah Fears in that conference, right, averaged 17.1 points per game, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal and a half, and just played well. Led them to a good season. Sometimes you've just got to look at the production. You got it here, and all of a sudden you've got a guy that looks like he can play downhill. And a lot of y'all are going to focus on the shooting numbers, and admittedly, they aren't particularly great. 28% from 3 overall on the season. In conference play, that dropped even to 23%. The shooting percentages aren't particularly great, but here's the thing. He's more of a downhill creator. You can be the greatest shooter there is, but that doesn't necessarily equate to spacing by itself. The Pelicans have needed a lead guard that gets defenses in rotations. So when he drives and attacks the basket, beats his man because the dude is quick, all of a sudden now someone has to rotate over to contest him at the rim. That means someone is open, right? That's how you kick out the ball to the corner and maybe it gets passed around. And while that defense is in rotation like that, all of a sudden you can break a defense down. The Pelicans have not had that type of player. Jordan Poole can do some of it, but you don't want him being your primary ball handler. One of the things that I've gotten from talking to a number of people, in the past 24 hours since that trade went down is you don't want Jordan Poole being your point guard. You want him being a little bit more of a creator at times, sure, but not your pure point. Fears is now your point guard of the future, not just a lead guard, but a point guard and your playmaker. And one of the big lessons that I have as a takeaway from the NBA playoffs is you need multiple guys that can do that. I see there's a comment of downhill creator. Don't we have Zion for that? You do. But you also need more than just one person to do that. You need 3-4 ball handlers and creators now in your offense. If you go back and look at most of the NBA playoffs here, every good team has that kind of creation. The Pelicans were lacking it. Now, all of a sudden, they really add it with Jeremiah Fears. One of the things from talking to scouts about him, too, is they do feel that 3-point shot can be developed. He had a good free throw stroke last year, 85.1% from the free throw line. When you look at the mechanics there, that's the type of number more than anything else, that free throw percentage of what projects to be a 3-point shooter at the NBA level. If he was a 60% shooter from the free throw line, even in the 70s, I would be concerned. I think when you look at that, when you look at the mechanics there, he'll really be able to grow in that regard and at least has an NBA skill already. a couple of the things he's going to need to work on just a little bit here are things like making sure he doesn't turn the ball over. He does that a little bit too much at times, and his shot selection can improve. Those are the type of things that almost every rookie's going to need to really try and improve upon. But for this guy who's got multiple moves in his bag, to be able to have that change of pace, this is a dude who switches gears and can change gears really, really well. You know, he can drive, stop, pull back, slow down, attack again, whatever you kind of need from him. He's capable of doing all of that. And that's how you really break down a defense. And to see that when you look at certain numbers from him here, right? He shot 36% on catch and shoot threes. That's going to show that he can develop the other aspects of his game. So there's definitely upside with that. The Pelicans also just need someone who can run a pick and roll, right? And that's Jeremiah Fears here. He's definitely capable of doing that. So the team is in a really good spot. The draft broke really, really well here for the Pelicans, where they had Fears, they had Malawach, they had Derek Queen, all available to them. This went about as well for New Orleans as they could have wanted to. And now there's bigger questions of where does Jeremiah Fears play? Does he start? Does he not? That's, I think, an open question right now. And what will the Pelicans do next in this draft? They have the 23rd overall pick. Could they move up from that? Potentially. And is that going to influence is this pick going to influence who they draft at 23? Let's talk about some of those questions, and then we'll get to your questions in the chat. That's coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. And what will the Pelicans do next in this draft? They have the 23rd overall pick. Could they move up from that? Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans, a live episode of Locked On Pelicans, is brought to you by Wayfair. There's nothing like stepping into your own outdoor space and feeling like you've escaped to a personal oasis. So if you're wanting to update your patio this season, Wayfair has made it so easy to turn it into a space that feels like yours. Comfortable, stylish, and ready for summer. Wayfair has everything you need to level up your outdoor space. I'm just about to order a new conversation set. Upgrade the backyard, especially when it cools off. It's going to be wonderful to grill out there. I enjoy spending it. We just hung string lights on the backyard. Feels great being out there right now. And you can do the same. My favorite thing about Wayfair is the free, fast, and hassle-free online shipping. I don't have a truck. I can't carry big things around. I can't get them into the house. Wayfair delivery is free right to the door and even to the room that I want the box in. So don't wait. Make your outdoor space your dream oasis today with Wayfair and enjoy it all summer long. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop a huge outdoor selection. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We are here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and join over 11,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well and become an everydayer. That means you listen Monday through Friday to the Locked On Pelicans podcast here. And don't forget, you can catch us on Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network every weekday at 10:30 a.m. here. And I am live in the Pelicans podcast studio, which is really fun. We're here kind of taking a look at everything that is going on here, talking with people in the media. It's a lot of fun being here for the draft. So Jeremiah Fears is the pick. This was someone that the Pelicans really did look at early on in the draft. They worked him out recently. They really liked the guy. And one of the things that you can be sure of when it comes to Jeremiah Fears, right, is those intangibles, the mental qualities and things that he has. That's because Joe Dumars is drafting a certain kind of player. One of the big themes from Joe Dumars in his introductory press conference and every other interview you've seen from him is he values toughness, a winning mentality, that just hard-nosed guy that's going to work his butt off. You can be assured that Jeremiah Fears is coming in with the mentality that I'm going to be a starter or I'm going to earn a starting spot. I love that type of mentality out of my team's starting point guard, and I would imagine that you would as well. You know, I'm not sure as of now if he's going to be starting or not for this team, but he is absolutely the point guard of the future. Also, Fears is just a fun name, truthfully, when it comes to players and those guys here. So having him step in, this is someone who can start. DeJounte Murray is not ready to start the year. I've just said from everyone I've talked to, and we'll dive more into this later on the show in the next couple of weeks, you really don't want Jordan Poole being your lead guard. You want him more as a secondary third guy. all of a sudden you could have a backcourt of Jeremiah Fears, Jordan Poole, Trey Murphy and or Herb Jones on the wing, Zion Williamson, and then Misi or a center upgrade. That seems pretty good to me. They're still a little bit light in the front court, and I'm sure that'll get addressed a little bit later, and we'll look at that coming up later in the show here. But to have your backcourt set for the foreseeable future, I really like that overall, and I'm happy with how this draft has gone. Fears and being that downhill attacker that has those intangibles is exactly the type of thing the team needs. You know, when you think about Fears and Zion Williamson, all of a sudden Zion Williamson has a very competent pick and roll guard here. They haven't had that, truthfully, during Zion's time where it's an elite pick and roll guard. Now they do. This is a guy that playing downhill makes Misi even better. Misi has been a pretty good lob threat, but hasn't had a dude to throw him lobs. All of a sudden, Misi does. You want Herb Jones to get space on the perimeter to shoot threes, Trey to get space on the perimeter to shoot threes. When you have Jeremiah Fears playing downhill, attacking the basket, trying to put pressure on the rim, all of a sudden now when defenders are rotating over, do you let Fears, who's pretty crafty around the rim, just lay it on in? Or if you try and contest him, you've got Trey Murphy III out there on the perimeter, or Zion getting the ball and being able to attack a closeout, something like that. All of this just makes a ton of sense. You know, with Jeremiah Fears, I would be penciling him in personally as a starter right now. I think with someone like him, and this kind of went into a lot of the discussion around Ace Bailey, I think, was that you need to let him just kind of be him, right? You need to let him just kind of be the guy that he is. He's a confidence-driven player. Start him, let him have that, go work through the growing pains, and let him figure it out kind of on the fly. And I think that's an important thing to keep in mind when it comes to Jeremiah Fears. If you bring him off the bench and he doesn't get to have the ball in his hands to be the starter for you, to kind of be that focal point, and maybe he can do that off the bench, right? Then all of a sudden, I think you're kind of taking away some of the better qualities of him, and that's not an ideal situation whatsoever. So this just opens things up, I think, for New Orleans a little bit more. He can start, he can come off of the bench. One thing to keep in mind, too, particularly at Oklahoma, he was clutch. This is a dude who hit some clutch shots for the team here for Oklahoma, particularly in the tournament. How about we add some people who are just clutch to this roster? That seems like a very good and important thing that they kind of need. So overall, this is a guy that I really liked early on. It seemed like the Pelicans really liked him early on as well. Forgive me as I'm watching a draft pick get popped in right now here to, I guess it's the Phoenix Suns at 10 overall. So the draft is still going on as we're doing this here. You're going to have to let me know if something crazy happens during all of it. And we'll get to your questions coming up here in a little bit as well. But I like the pick for Fears. You know, there's a little bit of concern that he's slightly undersized, and I think that's valid. Came in around 6'2", 6'3". That's not tremendous size. He's not small. A 6'6" wingspan's pretty good for that, and I think he'll be fine because you don't need him to be an outsized point guard. He has defensive upside too. But one thing to keep in mind as well with him does have to do with head coach Willie Green. And we'll get into the coaching stuff later in the week or next week here on Locked On Pelicans. But you need to make sure that Willie Green is on the proper page when it comes to development with Jeremiah Fears. He's going to have some games that you lose because he turned the ball over too many times. He's going to have some games where he just didn't do what you need him to do defensively, and you might lose because of that. That's been a way for players to just get buried in the bench under head coach Willie Green. That's the type of thing that's really going to kill a lot of the confidence for a guy like Jeremiah Fears, and you can't have that happen here. So you need to make sure that this entire organization is on board when it comes to developing Jeremiah Fears and really having a clear plan in place for how to do that, not just at the beginning of the year, but during the middle of the season as well. That, I think, is truly one of the important things this organization needs to figure out. Now, they seem like they're going to be doing all of that too. And so I think that's an important thing. You've seen Joe Dumars really be interested in, building up the player development side of things when it comes to the Pelicans. And I like that right now. That's the type of outlook that this team needs to have. They really need to be bringing these draft picks along and not have guys either traded too soon, like a Dyson Daniels, and he was never going to put it together here like he has in Atlanta. I question a little bit of the development of Jordan Hawkins after his really rough rookie year, then injury-filled season last year. You need to make sure there's a comprehensive plan for Jeremiah Fears going forward to make sure that you're going to get the most out of him, because this is a player that the Pelicans need to make an impact this coming season, whether that's a starter or off the bench. And you're going to need him for the future too. So the Pelicans need to make sure that they get everything right about what is, in my opinion, a very good draft pick for them, getting the second best point guard, lead guard in this draft, filling a position of need. Look, this also maybe makes someone like DeJounte Murray a little bit more expendable. You can wait till he comes back, certainly in January. Maybe that's when it'll be. Have him come off the bench. He'd certainly be on a minutes restriction. But overall, this gives you more flexibility with the roster than you had before. Now, you'd need to attach picks to, or Herb Jones or Trey Murphy to DeJounte Murray to move him. He's a negative asset at this point in time, but you'd at least have the option to do that. Whereas before, if you had drafted Cayman Malawach or someone else, that's not something that you would have been able to do. So they put themselves in a good position, again, to let the draft come to them and to take advantage of the market and other areas, other things that they want to do. And speaking of that, they have another pick, 23rd overall. Let's talk about who they might be targeting there, what they might be doing. We're going to probably end the show before we get that far into the draft. So we'll talk about it. We'll see if things change. Apparently there was a trade. You're all going to need to help me out when it comes to that a little bit too, because I'm behind, I'm catching up, and all of that stuff here. So trying to put it all together. Breaking news: the Charlotte Hornets are trading center Mark Williams to the Phoenix Suns for the 29th pick tonight and a 2029 first-round pick. Today's episode, a live episode of Locked On Pelicans, is brought to you by Skiims. I'm wearing Skiims men's underwear right now. I'm in the Pelicans facility. It's packed here, running around. I gotta stay comfortable. So when I found out Skiims was making underwear for men, I was pretty intrigued. I'm gonna tell you, the quality's great. They're breathable. It feels great as I'm running back and forth. It all lives up to the hype. Look, it's always tough if you're a guy to find the right kind of underwear, boxer briefs, whatever it is that you're looking for. You don't want things that like bunch up. You want things that are breathable, but maybe don't feel like you're wearing basketball shorts all day long. Skiims threads that needle on everything. I love the stretch 5-inch boxer brief. It can move. I can wear it to the gym. I can wear it to meetings. I can wear it on planes. I travel a good bit. All of that. It's just stretchy, breathable material that doesn't like bunch up or, worse than anything like that. So shop Skiims Men's at skims.com. Let them know we sent you. After you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select Locked On Pelicans in the drop-down menu that follows that skims.com. Trust me, you've got to try these. They're great. I'm not going to show you, but I am literally wearing a pair right now. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We are here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, coming to you like nobody else does, literally live from the team facility. As soon as this is done, I'm walking back out there. We're going to be interviewing Jeremiah Fears. We'll interview the 23rd overall pick as well. And then Joe Dumars is going to come and talk to us. And I got some questions, y'all. So make sure Locked On Pelicans is your first listen today and every day, whether it's on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, or on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network, the same channel that you watch the Pelicans on. We're on there 10:30 a.m. every single weekday. So for your second listen, Locked On Saints, Ross Jackson making sense of everything black and gold. Tyler Shook just winning everybody over. I love it. I want him to win the starting job. I'd like him to sign his contract too. Locked On Saints, covering everything black and gold. Make them your second listen today. So the Pelicans still have another draft pick. I think they've already got it right by getting Jeremiah Fears, someone they really clued in on early and seemed really happy with. This was someone they liked. And so I'm pretty happy with this pick. I like Jeremiah Fears pretty early on here when it comes to everything. And getting just a lead guard, that dynamic lead guard. Jordan Poole's more of an off-ball kind of guy. Give me a point guard. That's Jeremiah Fears. I'm glad they did that. Now, with the 23rd overall pick, you would imagine that this is a team that's really going to be looking to bolster their front court depth, particularly at the center position, I think, here. So when you look at who they could draft there, you're looking at a Thomas Sorber. You're going to be looking at a Maxine Reynaud, someone like that. Maybe Derek Queen if he falls. Maybe he's been selected. I don't really know here. But they're going to probably look to add either wing depth or a center, I think. Right now, the only viable center on the roster, truly, is Yves Missi. And as well as he played last year, I would really like them to add someone else at that position to create some more depth. And certainly they're going to need to either make a trade or they're either going to need to try and get someone, maybe it's a Brooke Lopez in free agency. Keep in mind, too, that with that trade with Jordan Poole, they've basically opened up the non-taxpayer mid-level exception in a way that they had not had access to before. They're about $12 million away from the luxury tax line right now. Let's call that the top end of where they're going to spend salary. You have a trade exception from the Brandon Ingram deal where you can just absorb someone into that. You could trade for a $12 million center without giving up a pick. And I think that's an important thing here. So they have flexibility now at that center position that they didn't have before to be able to address it and upgrade it. And maybe they just looked around the league and realized they weren't going to be able to get another guard like that. All of a sudden, your options become more, and that's what I like. So we'll be looking for Thomas Sorber, Maxine Reynaud, one of those type of guys. If Derek Queen falls, I wouldn't be shocked. They'd jump on him. I also would not be shocked, and I'm not going to make any proclamation or no inside info here. I think they want to make a pick. They're not looking to trade that 23rd pick to move up right now, it seems. You also have Asa Newell from Georgia that I think kind of fills a Naz Reid kind of role for a lot of teams too. He'd be a guy that I would be very interested in drafting and pairing alongside Jeremiah Fears here. All of a sudden, though, you look at this and the Pelicans' options are wide open. I would imagine they're not going to take a guard. I would have loved to have seen Walter Clayton Jr. there at 23. I don't think he was going to be available. The one prediction I'll make is that Walter Clayton Jr. has gone by 20 to the Miami Heat. He's worked out twice for them and then canceled other workouts. So that I think is kind of interesting. Maybe they realized the guy they wanted wasn't going to be there. So let's draft a guard at 7 and then go in a different direction with the sense for the Pelicans as well. I just like that they're in position to do whatever it is that they need to do. And so that's pretty good for where they want to be. When you look at Joe Dumars remaking the roster, doing different things here, I like what we're seeing so far. I don't necessarily know how competitive the team is going to be next season. That's still TBD, and there's more moves coming. Let's be very clear on that there are going to be a lot of moves coming here. But I think for a team that wants to be competitive this coming season, they're setting themselves up to be able to do just that. And I think that's all you can really ask for. This was a big challenge for Joe Dumars, and I think he's kind of nailing it, even if some of these moves aren't the sexiest moves we're seeing. No offense to Jordan Poole or Jordan Poole fans, but that's not like the move that's like that elevates you to playoff contender status. But it's a solid move. They weren't going to be keeping CJ McCollum beyond this year. So getting a guy that works and kind of solidifying your backcourt. Your wings are solidified too. It's Herb Jones and Trey Murphy, and you'll add a little bit of depth there. You've got your power forward spot kind of filled with Zion Williamson. Now you can do whatever. The Pelicans are in a good position to at least really be flexible, keep things moving forward and being interesting, which, hey, they weren't just 48 hours ago. I like what we're seeing from them here, what they've been doing here. So overall, I think this is pretty good. A couple of other little things I want to mention, and then we're going to do a little bonus podcast here live, hanging out with y'all, watching the draft, answering some questions before I run back to the media facility for everything here. I wonder what this could mean for someone like Jose Alvarado, a fan favorite. If you look at my normal backdrop when I'm not at the Pelicans facility, then you see that Jose Alvarado jersey there. This probably pushes him down a little bit, depending on what else they're going to do. If Fears is especially not starting, that kind of buries Jose Alvarado, it feels a little bit like. He's someone who was drawing first-round pick interest from a variety of teams at the trade deadline the past year. I can tell you the Bucks really wanted him. A move the Pelicans could make, right, in some capacity there. That's something to keep an eye on, but they're certainly not done. They still have the 40th pick. As of now, when I'm recording this, that could change. In the second round, they could try and add somebody there too. So we're going to see where the Pelicans go here, but all of a sudden there's multiple paths forward that they really didn't have the other day. being able to choose one of those paths is important. Which one we don't know yet, but at least you have options, and that's not something that they truly had before. So overall, I'm pretty happy with this. Let me know in the comments down below on YouTube what you think about Jeremiah Fears. 17.1 points per game, 1.6 steals, 4 assists, 4 rebounds, 85% from the free throw line. Here's a number that's impressive, right? 6.3 free throws per game. Those are really good numbers there. This is a dude who plays downhill, attacks, gets to the line, can dish it out to others as well. It's kind of exactly what you want to see. The big question is about his shooting, a little bit undersized, but this is someone that the Pelicans feel have the right mentality to really step in and be a competitive player for them. So it's exciting to see what they've done with this pick and where they're going to go from here. So that's going to do it for this part of Locked On Pelicans. We'll have a little bit of a bonus show. It won't be on Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment. It won't be on the podcast side. It'll only be here on YouTube. So let's hang out for 20 more minutes or so, talk a little bit draft, and answer your questions. So as always, I'm your host, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter. This is the Locked On Pelicans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. See y'all next time. Stay with me if you want to hang out. All right, we are staying live here on the show, and now it's finally my time to look at the chat. There's a whole bunch of y'all in here, so I appreciate y'all hanging out with me as we're watching the draft, as we're going to talk about Jeremiah Fears. Put your questions in the chat here. This is a lot of fun. This is where I get to interact with y'all, right? I got to do the regular show. It's kind of structured. Put your questions in the chat and let's start talking. Let me know if I missed anything here. Are there prospects you want him to take at 23? Are there questions you have about Jeremiah Fears? Is there a trade that you think you have? Let me know what you think, although I'm getting some text messages of like what is going on here. And I'm curious what that is going to be here. Oh, wait, is that real? Wait, did they just get the 13th overall pick? Did that just happen like live as we were going on here? Hold on. Let's see what's going on and what's happening. This is what happens when you go live in the moment here. The Hawks are trading the number 13th pick to the New Orleans Pelicans for the 23rd pick and an unprotected 2026 first-round pick, most favorable of New Orleans and Milwaukee. Does that mean they get the other one? That's going to be a little bit interesting. We're going to need to wait to figure all of that out. But let's stay with y'all here as we do this literally instantly in the moment. So if they just traded for 13, I haven't been following the draft, so I don't actually know like who's on the board. That feels like it's Derek Queen, right? Is he available in this exact moment? If that's the case, that kind of feels like what it's going to be. But wow, what an incredible time to be live and having just wrapped up the show, right? Is that Derek Queen? Has there been some sort of notification about this? I kind of love it if so. Yep, there you go. There you go. That makes a ton of sense. I have the image of Derek Queen here. All right, so let's do a little bit on Derek Queen as well. I admittedly am not the biggest Derek Queen guy. I was probably lower on him than a lot of other people. But when you look at what he's capable of doing, or what Derek Queen is capable of turning into, right? Like this can be a Nas Reed. This can be even like a DeMarcus Cousins kind of guy. He's big, he's burly, he's strong, and I think that's pretty intense. He's also very skilled, I think. This is someone who's really good around the basket at the rim, and he can use his left or right hand. I like that he has a pretty tight handle overall for a big man. As I said, he's got some guard skills in him. That's something that DeMarcus Cousins had too. He's got an active post game as well, and he can be an offensive hub. So all of a sudden, your offense is looking like Zion Williamson, Derek Queen, Jordan Poole, and Jeremiah Fears, and these are all people that can create. I said you want 3-4 ball handlers, right? The Pelicans right there have 3 or 4 ball handlers in that lineup. So this is, an incredibly creative offense that they're going to do. We'll talk more about James Borrego and what his leaving could mean. He's going to love this. He's going to love this, being able to kind of create an offense for all of these guys. You can get as creative as possible I think. So adding Derek Queen in here is going to be really cool. There are concerns about Derek Queen too. He is a little bit undersized for the center spot. Is he more of a power forward? I think there are questions about his commitment, his hustle. But if Joe Dumars is drafting him, right, this is someone who is very clear on he wants a specific type of person, a specific type of player in this building. You know, if this is in Joe we trust, I kind of like this move. Then that means those concerns about some of that lack of commitment or whatever is probably not a big thing. And so you add him into this. He's also not a stretch big. In my opinion, this is not someone who shoots a ton of threes, is going to kind of have some of that ability. But when you want someone who, one, was exciting to watch, but can facilitate the ball and give you multiple ball handlers, he can definitely do it. He's a good rebounder too, in my opinion. This is someone who's both good on offense and defensive side of the ball. So I'm excited about that. What I'm curious about is, what's the pick that they're trading involved in this, right? They're trading with Atlanta, where Atlanta was getting the worst of the Milwaukee or the Pelicans pick next year. Does this mean they just get the better one and the Pelicans get the worst? I haven't seen exactly what it is yet, and I think that's kind of the big question here. So the Pelicans still might have a first-round pick next year, I think. So I'm assuming that it just means they get the more favorable going to Atlanta versus the least favorable first. So it's a little confusing. I'll try and get some more clarity on this here a little bit. So someone says, Keith Sigona says, that's it, Jake. They get the better of the two. All right, that could still be a valuable pick, right? Who knows if the Pelicans are going to be that good or not next year. But this is the type of thing that I like the Pelicans going for it, right? This is Joe Dumars being as bold as possible, I think. So I'm kind of thrilled that this is what the team is doing. You want them to make changes. You want them to redo things, to have things just be different. You're getting it here right now. I told you that the Pelicans were not going to be a team that just kept and ran the same roster back. It was going to be a whole lot different, a whole lot more. They did it tonight. Even if you don't love the players, you've got to kind of applaud them for going for it, right? I love that. This is aggressive. This is, kind of what you want to see. And this Pelicans team today looks dramatically different than it did 48 hours ago. I kind of love it. Keith says next year is a better draft. It is, but it does, the draft is also a crapshoot. If there's a guy you like, the everydayers know this. Go and get your guy. If Derek Queen is your guy, trust your process. Go and get him. Charles Keys 726. Shout out Charles. Who starts between Messi and Queen? I don't know yet. Let's see what other moves they make here. But this has certainly been a very interesting night for the team. I'm very interested in a Jeremiah Fears, Jordan Poole, Zion Williamson, Derek Queen lineup, probably with Trey Murphy out there. That lineup is fun. There can be some shooting in there with Poole and Trey, and if Fears develops that, but you have four guys that can handle the ball, that's going to be a lot of fun. Kobe asks, do the Pelicans have a first-round pick next year? I believe they will. I need to dive into this, and I'll go back into the other room for everything here. They're going to be giving out a lot of the draft hats here, it looks like. So very exciting night for the Pelicans. Wow, I was not quite expecting that, but you could see them potentially trading up. I had heard some rumors today that they were interested in getting back into the middle of the first round. 13, I guess, with Queen sliding a little bit. They wanted their guy. And if you think about it, basically what they gave up for that was 8 picks next year, right? If it's, Atlanta gets the better of the Milwaukee or the Pelicans pick now, that's likely going to be on the Pelicans side of things. It's going to be a difference of 8 picks. Even if it's a better draft next year, get the guy that you want. And I think that's the important thing to be able to do here. So the Pelicans coming in with 2 highly touted rookies. This is going to be a lot of fun. The team is young. They're going to be much more exciting next year too. And they still have tons of picks in the future. This is not the Pelicans in this trade up move. What I like about it, giving up like massive assets. So this is overall, I think, a smart piece of business, assuming like it kind of hinges on, do you like Derek Queen and is that the guy that you want? And if it is, Great. You went in, you got your guy. You trust your scouts. You trust your people in the front office. Go and get your man. The Pelicans did that. Pretty exciting time here in New Orleans. Logic says if you looked at Maxine Reynaud as a stretch big, I like him a lot, but I don't think you need another big now. You could draft another one. Potentially we'll see what they do at 40. So we'll see. They still have another pick in this draft. It's pretty fun here. So let's hang out for like 5 more minutes, and then I got to probably run back for everything here. So if you got some questions, throw them in here. Zachary Bagoon says, is Fears' size a concern? If he can put enough strength on, he's quick enough to keep up with a lot of people. But you also have Herb Jones for some of that too. And if Trey can kind of develop defensively too, that means you can put Herb Jones on a backcourt player and Trey on a wing. And so it kind of solves some of that for you as well here. So I think that's kind of what you're looking at here. So it's going to be pretty interesting. Andrew Salasek says, where will the defense come from next season? Hopefully Herb Jones being healthy, hopefully from Zion Williamson, hopefully from Derek Queen, who has the ability to be, to block shots, and we'll see what they end up doing in the second round. I see Bobby Richardson 81 says, Sion James in the second, please. You could get some defense with him at that spot there too. So there's still abilities to get good defensive players here, but you've also seen the Pelicans be a good defense, even with like not elite defenders. They play very good team defense. They have the ability to do this sort of thing. So we'll see what they're doing and how it's going to look here. So I've actually been told that we're going to be talking to the picks here in a couple of minutes. So I got to pop back in. Maybe we'll do a live show tomorrow because this is a lot. I'm going to certainly be having extra podcasts coming out and everything here. So I appreciate y'all hanging out with me, doing a live show with me. This was a lot of fun. We'll do more of these as the Pelicans. Somehow, never boring. So I appreciate y'all so much for hanging out with me. We've got tons of y'all in here. This is a lot of fun. We'll do more of these. Let me know what you think about the picks in the comments down below. As always, I'm your host, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter. This is the Locked On Pelicans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Be back with y'all tomorrow, wherever you get your podcasts, and on YouTube as well. And don't forget, we are on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network as well. Watch us at 10:30. See y'all next time.